Happy Thursday. It is Thursday, February 26th, 2026. And I have to say, just looking at the calendar today, I'm getting hit with this massive, really complicated wave of nostalgia.
Oh, I bet.
Yeah. I mean, do you remember where you were in the early 2000s? Because if you were anywhere near a television set, you were probably in your living room practicing your smize in the mirror.
Oh, absolutely. America's Next Top Model.
Right.
You literally couldn't escape it. It wasn't just a TV show. It was this cultural monolith. I mean, it shaped the vocabulary of an entire generation when it came to fashion, beauty, and honestly, just how we view the workplace.
That is so true. It really taught us that, on time is late and that we should always be ready to just have our hair completely chopped off at a moment's notice.
Exactly.
But here we are, it is over 20 years later, and the conversation around that show has shifted so violently. We aren't just talking about Potladum or Tyra's fierce runway walks anymore. We are in the middle of a very serious, very uncomfortable reckoning.
We really are. The lens has completely changed.
Yeah.
And that actually brings us to the mission of today's deep dive. We are unpacking the incredibly complex and honestly sort of contradictory reaction of one of the show's biggest success stories.
Eva Marcille.
Yes, Diva. The Cycle 3 winner. Short hair, big attitude, just iconic.
Truly iconic. But recently, with the release of the explosive new Netflix docuseries Reality Check, Inside America's Next Top Model, Eva has been making headlines all over again.
She has.
We've pulled a stack of sources for this deep dive. Exclusive interviews she gave to Us Weekly, to People, and her recent appearance on CBS Mornings. And the tension in all of these is just palpable.
It really is, because Eva is arguably the franchise's golden child. I mean, she won, she booked the actual job, she became a real working celebrity. But reading these interviews, she's describing herself as gobsmacked and horrified by what this documentary has revealed. It raises a fascinating dilemma that goes way beyond just reality TV. It's this question of how do you balance immense gratitude for the platform that launched your entire career with the sudden revelation that the exact same platform was allegedly a site of systemic abuse for your peers?
That is the million-dollar question. And I definitely want to get into the actual horror of the documentary because the allegations are incredibly heavy. But first, I think we have to look at Eva's trajectory.
Yeah, we should.
Because there's this misconception that you win top model, the confetti falls, and boom, you're a supermodel with a paved road ahead of you. And that just wasn't true.
Not at all. And that is precisely the myth Eva is dismantling in these interviews.
Yeah.
She opened up to Us Weekly about something really personal that I think a lot of people just missed or totally forgot about, which is her name change.
Right.
You remember her on the show as Eva Pigford? Right?
Of course. Eva Pigford. That was the name on the screen when she won. That's who we all voted for.
Right. But she told Us Weekly that she essentially had to rebrand herself as Eva Marcille to escape the stigma of the show. She literally called her top model win a scarlet letter.
A scarlet letter. Wow. That is incredibly heavy language.
It is.
That implies a deep shame. It implies something you have to actively hide from people.
It does. And it speaks to how the industry actually viewed reality stars back in the mid-2000s. It wasn't like today where reality stars are, business moguls and billionaires.
Right, right.
Back then, it was seen as trashy. She said, and I quote, "That's what I feel like was missing on Top Model because I got the scarlet letter. I changed my name to Marcille so that when I walked into an audition, I wasn't prejudged."
So winning the show wasn't a golden ticket for her. It was actually baggage.
Exactly.
Baggage.
She talked about walking into audition rooms as Eva Pigford, and casting directors would see her resume and just think, oh, reality girl. She wasn't viewed as a serious talent or a real actress. She was just famous for being famous. So by changing her name to Marcille, which is actually her middle name, she basically bought herself a clean slate.
That's a brilliant strategy, even if it is a little sad. It's almost like money laundering, but for your reputation. You have to wash the reality TV stink off to be taken seriously as an actor.
In a way, yes. And this leads to a really interesting concept she brought up about paying dues.
I highlighted this section in the notes because it completely flips the traditional narrative. Usually you pay your dues before you make it big, you wait tables, you do the small off-Broadway plays in some basement, you get rejected 100 times, and then you get the big break.
Right. That's the standard Hollywood hero's journey. But Eva argues that reality TV inverts that timeline entirely. She said Tyra gave her the opportunity to pay her dues on the back end.
On the back end. So you get the fame first, and then you have to prove you actually deserve to be there.
That's the crux of it. She noted that a lot of people from Top Model didn't realize that, in her words, becoming fame doesn't mean that you now have a career.
Wow.
You have visibility, sure, You have the followers, but you haven't built the foundation of actual skill and industry respect. Eva had to work twice as hard after the show wrapped to prove she wasn't just a flash in the pan.
And looking at her resume now, I mean, she clearly pulled it off. She really did. She's promoting a new movie right now, isn't she?
It is. It's a Lifetime movie with the incredible title, Pushed Off a Plane and Survived.
Stop it. Pushed off a plane and survived.
Yes.
That is peak Lifetime, and I am absolutely watching that tonight with a giant bowl of popcorn.
It is quintessential genre work, but it proves her exact point. She transitioned successfully from reality contestant to a working, booked actress. She cemented that pivot. But getting there required shedding the Eva Pigford identity that the television show created for her.
So she creates this distance, she rebrands, she builds a very solid acting career over a couple of decades. She's safe, she's established, and then...
February 26th hits.
Exactly. Netflix drops Reality Check, Inside America's Next Top Model.
The documentary that has completely dominated the cultural conversation for the last 10 days. You literally cannot scroll social media without seeing a clip from it.
And it is intense. It's 3 parts, released February 16th. And it promises to expose the dark underbelly of the show. Now, here's what genuinely confuses me about this. Eva was the winner of Cycle 3. She is one of the most recognizable faces in the franchise's entire history. Was she in the doc?
No, she wasn't. And not only was she not in it, she actually said she wasn't even asked to participate.
That seems like a glaring omission by the filmmakers. I mean, how do you do a massive deep dive on ANTM without Eva the Diva?
It is surprising. It could be a narrative choice, maybe the only one to people who had negative experiences to feature in the interviews. But her reaction to watching it just as a regular viewer is arguably more telling than if she had been a talking head in the actual series.
What did she say?
She went on CBS Mornings and described her reaction to watching it as gobsmacked. She used phrases like mouth wide open and amazingly horrified.
Okay, let's drill down here for a second. Horrified by what, specifically? Because she was on the show, she lived in the model house, she dealt with the exact same judges, she was there.
Well, that's where the distinction between an individual's experience and systemic abuse really comes into play.
Yeah.
The documentary lays out allegations that go way, way beyond just mean critiques or a bad runway walk. We're talking about shoots that required models to wear extremely dark makeup, which sparked massive blackface allegations.
Right.
There are accounts of alleged on-camera sexual assault, judges body-shaming contestants into severe eating disorders, and one of the biggest bombshells allegations of forced medical procedures.
Oh, forced medical procedures. I remember reading that in the source notes and doing a complete double take.
It's heavy. That is one of the most serious allegations mentioned in the source material. And Eva claims she knew absolutely none of this was happening.
She had no idea. How is that even possible if they were all living in the same house?
She says she was completely in the dark. She actually reached out to Jay Manuel, the former creative director, the guy with the signature silver hair.
Oh, yeah, Mr. J.
Right. She reached out to him after seeing the trailer for the doc and asked him, is this the same top model that we did?
That is such a relatable human reaction, though. You think you know your own history, and then someone pulls back the curtain and you realize you were just living in a complete bubble.
She used a really powerful analogy for this feeling. She said, to be a part of a club and not know what's going on in the club is crazy.
To be a part of a club and not know what's going on in the club? That quote really stuck with me. It sounds a lot like survivor's guilt, almost. Or just the profound shock of realizing your very positive experience was happening literally right next door to someone else's total nightmare.
I think that's a very fair assessment. It's the realization that your reality was not the only reality. And it brings us to the most complex part of this deep dive. Because if you just heard Eva is horrified, you'd expect her to be denouncing the show, right?
Right. Burn it to the ground, demand accountability, tweet the angry hashtag.
Exactly. But she's not doing that. In fact, she is staunchly defending the judges.
See, this is the part that made my head spin a little bit when I was reading the People article. She's horrified by the abuse allegations, but she calls the judges her guardians.
Yes. She explicitly calls the panel, meaning Tyra Banks, Nigel Barker, Miss J. Alexander, and J. Manuel, her guardians. She credits them with teaching her diligence and excellence beyond the bar.
Excellence beyond the bar. That is high praise. It sounds more like she's talking about strict teachers who pushed her to be better rather than abusers.
Exactly. She views their toughness as direct mentorship. She was actually at a book signing for J. Manuel recently. He wrote a book called The Wig, the Bitch, and the Meltdown.
Great title.
Really great title. And she was there and she told him, if Miss J is the spine, then you are the heart.
That is incredibly sweet. But help me reconcile this. How does she square that deep love with the horror of the documentary? Especially when it comes to Tyra. Because let's be real here, Tyra is the lightning rod for all of this criticism. She was the face, the creator, the ultimate boss.
This is where it gets really interesting and where we see the nuance of human relationships versus public perception. Eva seems to feel very protective of Tyra. She told Us Weekly, "I don't know what the world wants from Tyra."
Defending Tyra Banks in 2026, that is a bold stance to take publicly because the internet is not exactly kind to Tyra right now.
It really isn't. Eva acknowledges she's heard Tyra apologize over the years, but she feels like society is engaging in gaslighting and blackballing. She basically suggested it's cancel culture running amok. She explicitly said, "I'm not going to hang my hat on Tyra and make it as if she is the reason why the industry has been difficult."
So she's essentially saying, don't hate the player, hate the game. Like, the fashion industry itself is inherently toxic, and Tyra was just preparing these young girls for the reality of it.
To an extent, yes. She seems to believe Tyra was a buffer or a harsh teacher for a very harsh world. But I think it's also crucial to contextualize Eva's position here. She won. She succeeded. She is the ultimate beneficiary of the system working exactly as it was designed to, for her.
That's a crucial point. It's survivor bias.
Exactly. Think about it this way. If you go through a grueling military boot camp and you come out as a decorated general, you probably look back at your drill sergeant pretty fondly. You think, they broke me down to build me up.
Right, it was part of the process.
But if you broke your leg on the very first day, got screamed at while you were in physical pain and were just left in the mud, you have a very, very different memory of that exact same drill sergeant.
That makes total sense. Eva is the general in this analogy.
She is. She is acknowledging that her guardians might have been other people's tormentors, but she flat out refuses to erase her own positive experience with them just because the public tide has turned.
It's messy, but honestly, it feels more honest than if she just jumped on the bandwagon and pretended she hated them now just to save face.
It is more honest, and she's really trying to hold two competing truths at once. Truth one being, Tyra helped her immensely. Truth two being, the show deeply hurt others.
And she does acknowledge that hurt, right? She's not dismissing the victims in the documentary as liars or anything.
No, not at all, and that's a very important distinction to make. She isn't gaslighting the victims. In fact, she has a very sober, very mature take on the apologies that Tyra has issued.
What did she say about that? Because Tyra has apologized a few times over the years, hasn't she?
She has. And Eva noted that she's heard Tyra say sorry multiple times. But she said, and this is a really heavy quote, "There is no sorry, I think, that's big enough to truly feel and heal that kind of hurt."
Oof, yeah, that really lands.
It does. She specifically mentioned victims of sexual assault or girls who developed eating disorders because of the show's intense pressure. She knows a PR statement or a quick sorry from a producer just doesn't cure that. You can't just apologize away a trauma that permanently altered the course of someone's life.
That is profound. It's almost like she's saying, I forgive Tyra, but I can't forgive her for you.
That is a perfect way to put it. She's validating the apology while fully acknowledging its limitations. And she also points out something else that often gets lost when we focus solely on the face of the franchise. She mentioned that this toxic environment could not exist without producers aiding and abetting what was going on.
Right. Tyra was the host and the executive producer, sure, but there was a massive machine behind her. There were people holding the cameras, people editing the storylines to make girls look crazy, people planning these incredibly dangerous challenges.
Exactly. It takes a village to make a reality television show, and apparently it takes a village to enforce systemic abuse, too. Eva is seemingly trying to spread the accountability around, rather than letting the internet just pile absolutely everything onto Tyra Banks, who, by the way, is now 52 years old.
Right.
Eva seems to feel that pinning the sins of an entire toxic industry on one single woman is unfair, especially when so many other executives and producers profited massively from it.
It's a lot to process. We have Eva Marcille, the ultimate success story. She changes her name to survive the reality TV curse. She pays her dues on the back end to build a legitimate, real career. She gets totally shocked by a documentary revealing the dark side of the exact thing that made her famous. And yet she stands firmly by her guardians while still holding space for the victims.
It's a masterclass in nuance, really. We so often want our heroes to be perfectly flawless and our villains to be just pure evil. The internet loves a binary. You're either 100% with us or you're against us.
Yeah.
But Eva is showing us that you can be deeply grateful for an opportunity while being absolutely horrified by the human cost of it.
And it really makes you think about how we consume this stuff. I mean, we watched it. If you were listening to this, you probably watched it. We watched Cycle 3. We laughed when girls fainted during judging. We cheered when they got cut and sent home crying. We were part of the club, too, in a way.
We were the audience.
Yeah.
We fueled the ratings.
Mm-hmm.
We created the demand that made the abuse so profitable. If we hadn't watched, they wouldn't have kept pushing the envelope season after season.
So what does this all mean for us, for you, the listener, who maybe watched the show back in the day or who is binging the new documentary right now?
I think the relevance here goes way beyond just reality TV.
Yeah.
It's really about how we look back at legacy media or even our own past institutions and workplaces. We can appreciate the doors that were opened, and Eva certainly does appreciate them, while being completely clear-eyed about the damage that was done to get those doors open in the first place.
We can chew gum and walk at the same time. We can love the nostalgia and absolutely hate the abuse.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And we can listen to the people who were actually there, even when their stories seem entirely contradictory. Because both things can be true. Eva can be a massive success story, and the show can be a profound source of trauma. One does not cancel out the other.
Well, this has been a trip from Eva the Diva to Eva Marcille the Survivor. It's a fascinating arc to witness.
It really is. And it leaves us with a lot to think about regarding the true cost of fame and just the selective nature of memory.
Absolutely. Now, before we sign off, we always like to leave you with a little something to chew on, a provocative thought to take with you into your day.
And this one stems directly from Eva's quote about the club. She felt she was in a club, the top model family, but she didn't know the dark secrets happening right down in the basement.
To be a part of a club and not know what's going on in the club is crazy.
So here's the question for you. In your own life, whether it's your workplace, your specific industry, or even your social circle, are you benefiting from being in a club where you're just ignoring the experiences of those who aren't thriving?
Ooh, that hits really close to home.
Are there people in the basement of your industry paying a heavy price just so you can enjoy the view from the penthouse? It's an uncomfortable question to ask, but as Eva just found out, sometimes the things you don't know can be the most horrifying.
That is definitely something to mull over today. Thank you all for diving deep with us. It's been real.
Thanks for listening. Keep questioning the narrative.